This is the new Microsoft Surface. It embodies the notion of hardware and software really pushing each other.
Microsoft unveils a new tablet called the Surface. Can the device compete with Apple's iPad? Will it cause a rift with the computer makers that are Microsoft's biggest clients? I'm Catherine Rampell, reporting for Business Day Live. We'll be hearing from Stephanie Clifford about Best Buy's struggles to survive, and Peter Latman is here to talk about yet another reason you don't want to get slapped with an insider trading case, the gigantic legal bills. But first, I'm joined by Nick Wingfield in Seattle. He was in Los Angeles last night for Microsoft's big announcement. Nick, thanks very much for joining me.
You bet.
So this particular announcement is for a product that is intended to compete with the iPad. How is it actually different from the iPad?
Well, there are a number of differences. First of all, it's a 10.6-inch screen. It's a little bit bigger than the iPad. The dimensions of it otherwise are fairly similar in terms of thinness. It has a kind of neat kickstand that you can pop out the back of it so that you can prop the device up and watch movies and things like that. And it also has, probably the most innovative thing that it has that I saw was a cover that folds out and turns into a much larger keyboard than you would normally use on a tablet device. It's a touch-sensitive cover, and you can type away, and Microsoft says you can be more productive on it than you can be with other devices.
Why did Microsoft actually decide to enter this market? I mean, usually when people think about Microsoft, they think about software, not as much hardware. At least they haven't had as much success with their hardware products.
Right. There are great reasons that they've stayed out of hardware. It's just not their main business. They've allowed their PC partners over the years to really showcase whatever innovations they put into their operating system. The problem now, analysts believe, their partners are not stepping up and producing devices that are competitive with the iPad. And so Microsoft may have felt that it needed to come out with its own hardware to kind of lead the way. It says it's not abandoning its model of working with other hardware companies, but it needed to do this in order to show them what was possible.
What are the other hardware companies doing in reaction?
Well, so far we really haven't heard from many of them. I would say it's sort of it's a sticky area because they still make a lot of money from selling Windows PCs, and Microsoft still relies on those hardware companies for the vast bulk, all of its Windows revenue. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how Microsoft works out these relationships with its PC companies as it effectively starts to compete with them with this new Surface product.
Bottom line, should Apple be worried about this potential competitor?
Well, I think it's inevitable that there is going to be some more serious competition for Apple. Whether it comes from Microsoft or whether it comes from Google is a little unclear. But Microsoft still sells a lot of PCs, and some portion of that market is ripe to use tablets. And so I think they have a very credible response, it looks like, to Apple, but we still don't know key details like price and availability.
Well, thanks very much for joining me today.
Thank you.
When Microsoft's new tablet goes on sale, it will be available through the company's stores and on its website. Not everyone is happy about that, though, in particular, the big box stores like Best Buy. Squeezed by online retailers like Amazon, electronic stores are struggling to survive. Stephanie Clifford took a look at Best Buy and its problems and filed this report.
I'm standing outside of Best Buy on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan, and the company has been plagued by a couple of problems. On the management side, the chief executive stepped down abruptly earlier this year. The board later found out that he was having an improper relationship with a subordinate. And the founder also resigned from the board just recently, saying he no longer wanted to be a part of it, he wished the company luck, and he's trying to sell a 20% stake in the company. So that's the management problems. On the other side, Best Buy is facing an industry-wide problem, which is with Amazon offering cheap prices, people buying on their phones, how do you get people to go into a store and buy electronics? Competitors are taking some pretty interesting tacks as they look at Best Buy's problems. Walmart has been running competitive ads around the 50 stores that Best Buy is closing, saying, hey, come shop with us instead. Another store called Apt Electronics outside of Chicago is basically turning its showroom into a Disneyland. On weekends it serves coffee and cookies, it has toys for kids to play with, it has an aquarium, it has a giant 5,000-pound granite ball that people can push around and play with. It's now selling watches and mattresses and home alarm systems in addition to electronics, as it says, we've got to make store shopping into something very different than what you can do online. The upshot for electronics retailers is not great at this point for people selling products in stores. Sales of that have been declining about 2.5% a year, while internet sales have been increasing about 14.5% a year over the last 5 years. In general, it's a trend that's happening across industries. You're seeing in-store companies shift to smaller stores, saying we don't need the giant spaces anymore. You're seeing them emphasize e-commerce sales, but a lot of them are just trying to figure out how do we make this category exciting again.
Finally, not many people will shed a tear about this, but when rich executives face criminal charges, like insider trading, they also end up with millions of dollars in legal bills. My colleague Peter Latman has been looking at some unusual financial arrangements in some of the latest white-collar cases. Peter, thanks for joining me.
Hey, Catherine.
So last week, Rajat Gupta was convicted of insider trading and has, amongst other problems, run up a ginormous amount of legal bills. What's the deal with that? How big are these bills?
Yeah, so what we're reporting is that his legal bills are approaching $30 million. Now, he's been under investigation for almost 2.5 years, and this 1-month-long trial that ended in a conviction on Friday is just one small part of it. White-collar cases are very complex, they're very hard to defend, and you know, this, though, is sort of an eye-popping figure in terms of the bill that he's run up.
And who's paying for it?
So that's the amazing thing about this story, is that here Rajat Gupta is, having been convicted of leaking boardroom secrets about Goldman Sachs, where he served as a director, to his friend, the hedge fund trader Raj Rajaratnam. So he betrayed Goldman Sachs' trust, and who's paying the bills? Goldman Sachs.
I'm guessing Goldman is not too happy about that.
No, I think I described it as, you know, to say that they're paying it grudgingly would be an understatement, right? So, however, in Goldman Sachs' bylaws and lots of companies' bylaws, they pay for the legal fees of their employees because, after all, they want to protect their executives who might incur personal liability while acting on behalf of the company. But companies only protect their executives and officers up to a point, right? So here, what's going to happen is Goldman has been advancing him the legal fees, about $30 million. But now with his conviction, they can eventually try and claw back that money and say, however, you committed insider trading. A jury said you violated the law. These were not your responsibilities as a director. So you owe us the money back. So down the road, potentially, we could see a fight if Goldman Sachs tries to claw back those funds.
It's unusual for these types of cases to actually go to trial in the first place, right?
Yeah, so look, Rajat Gupta was a very wealthy man. He ran McKinsey for many years. He was on the board of Goldman, Procter & Gamble, American Airlines. At trial, it was established he was worth $130 million. He could have afforded to mount a defense. The problem is a lot of these white-collar criminals who don't have the wherewithal of Gupta are charged with crimes, and they can't afford these expensive white-collar criminal defense lawyers.
Yeah, not everybody has $30 million in their back pocket.
So they
right?
plea bargain. So it's really why you see very few trials.
And so now that he has been convicted, how long can we expect this fight over who actually has to foot the bill and that sort of thing? How long can we expect that to go on?
There's law on this, and Conrad Black actually established some law on this because there was a fight with his company over his legal bills. And what the law says is that there has to be a final disposition of the case. He's going to appeal the guilty verdict, take it to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. He could then try and take it to the Supreme Court, which probably won't hear the case. But that process could take a couple of years before finally Goldman will continue to advance those legal bills and then finally at some point be able to say, okay, you owe us the money back.
Well, outlook is not good for Lehman, I guess, or excuse me, for Goldman for a number of reasons.
Thanks, Catherine.
Thanks. That's all for today. Please stay with us online at nytimes.com for continuing coverage of this and other stories. I'm Catherine Rampell, reporting for Business Day Live. Thanks for watching.